Hello, one and all. This is my view of My Hero Academia, Chapter 362, Light Fades to Rain. And it kind of seems like they just killed Bakugo. I mean, I know I've been joking about that for quite a while, but I mean, his heart literally exploded, either from the stress of his own quirk, or from Shigaraki punching him really freaking hard. Either way, there is a gaping hole in his chest, and he is, vomiting up blood and laying on the ground. He certainly looks dead. I mean, seriously. I know this is an anime. I know, no one's ever really dead until they're dead, and even then, they might come back to life, but yeah, he looks dead. He looks seriously, overwhelmingly dead. And if so, if this actually ends up sticking, I would be ecstatic. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Bakugo as a character, but seriously, when was the last time a manga author, especially in Shonen Jump, had the gall to kill off a popular character? It just doesn't happen, especially Bakugo, who is literally the most popular character in this series. I'm not joking, they have done a lot of popularity polls, and Bakugo, I think, has always come out on top. He always has the number one spot, so for him to actually die here, for Horikoshi to actually kill him, holy god above, that would be just so amazing, such a ballsy move, and I would certainly be impressed. Admittedly sad, of course sad, but also just incredibly impressed they actually, went through with it. I mean, plenty of manga authors are just so afraid of killing off characters that they never do, and that just really, damages the story. I've heard famously the author of Fairy Tail said, I was afraid that the fans would be disappointed. They would be upset with me if I killed off any of the characters, so I just let them all live. I just let them never die, even when they were facing terribly deadly situations. And I think that's even more relevant in his earlier work, Rave Master. In that series, literally every character should have died like 5 times over. One dude blew himself up and fell out of an airplane, and he was fine. He just had like a robot hand afterwards for reasons. Another dude, he had this super secret ultimate technique. He's like, if I do this technique, I will certainly die. He did it 3 times. He did it 3 freaking times throughout the series, and he just kept not dying for reasons, whatever they were. But here, Horikoshi, it seems like he might actually be killing Bakugo, and I would be impressed. Again, sad, but impressed. And it does make a certain amount of sense, because it does feel like Bakugo's story is, in a sense, over. I mean, he's apologized to Deku, he's formed bonds with his classmates. What's really left for him to do? What's really left for him to grow as a character? I'm not actually sure about that. I mean, people are saying, he can't die yet, he still needs to rise up and become Deku's equal. Yeah, that's a nice thought. That's a, really nice thought, but it's not gonna happen. Deku has the power of All Might and like 5 other people inside of him. He is a borderline god at this point. And Bakugo, I mean, his sweat can blow up. That's certainly impressive, but he will never stand up to Deku. He'll never be Deku's equal at this point. And if you want to actually see, Bakugo and Deku fighting side by side as equals, go watch the second movie. It happens in the second movie, which is also how we know it's not going to happen here, because the author, Horikoshi, said that the ending of that movie was something he originally planned for the end of this series, but changed his mind. So we know for a fact it's not happening here. Bakugo is not going to get the power of One for All and fight side by side with Deku as equals. So it doesn't really leave a lot left for Bakugo to do. I mean, maybe he'll recover, maybe he'll be okay. Best Jeanist will sew up his heart, or Eri/Overhaul will show up and put him back together again, but I mean, if so, what's really left for him other than just, spending the rest of his life being in Deku's shadow? I'm not saying he should die because of that, but it means his death would make a lot of sense. And we even see Bakugo come to a new level of understanding of Deku, because when his quirk awakens, or when he, forcibly turns his quirk into something way more terrifying, he thinks to himself, wow, my entire body is killing me, and while I'm suffering through all this pain and horror and agony, I still need to focus on my opponent. I still need to put every ounce of my attention into my enemy and try to figure out the best way to attack him. This is what Deku has been going through ever since he first got One for All. And And, almost immediately after that, he ends up getting hit and probably dying. So, in a way, I think this can be argued to be, Bakugo's way of understanding that's it, isn't it? Deku was always above me. It wasn't the quirk, it wasn't the power. It was Deku's own, his will, his soul, his heart that made him, better than me. It made him able to withstand the power and the pain at the same time. And, I'm strong. I'm fighting really hard here. I'm doing more damage to Shigaraki than anyone else, but I'm just not Deku's equal. I can't measure up to him. I can't catch you. He even says, "So Izuku, can I still catch up to you?" And the answer is no. Even with his quirk being pushed into overdrive, and even with him pushing himself to the very limits of what is possible, he still isn't able to stand up to Shigaraki. He still isn't able to be Shigaraki's equal. And that means he's not Deku's equal. And I think there's something really interesting being referenced here because, Bakugo was still carrying around the All Might trading card that he got with Deku all those years ago. Seriously, we saw that in a flashback years and years ago. They both opened the wrapper, they both saw they got the same card, they're both all excited and happy and cheering. Oh, so adorable and so utterly, utterly heartbreaking. But anyway, this reminds me of a scene from Avengers, and Horikoshi has said many times before that he is a big fan of American comics, so I think it stands to reason that he'd be a big fan of American, comic movies, the Avengers, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I'm gonna assume that he saw, the first Avengers movie, at least the first Avengers movie, when they all first, met up and became a team, became the Avengers. And in that movie, for the few people who are watching this who haven't actually seen it, please, seriously, if you have not watched Avengers or any movie in the MCU, please let me know down below. I am very curious about your life. Anyway, though, in that movie, there's a character named Phil Coulson. He's been in a lot of movies beforehand. Everyone really loved him, and he was a huge fan of Captain America. So much so that he even had these rare vintage Captain America trading cards, and he was so excited, like, oh, I'm gonna get Captain America to sign these cards. I'm gonna get Captain America to sign these cards. And then he got stabbed through the heart and died, which was very, very heartbreaking, no pun intended. And then later on, Nick Fury had those cards, they were covered in blood, and he said, I guess never had the chance to ask you to sign this card, did he? And that's very similar to what we're seeing here. Bakugo straight up says he never got All Might's autograph on the card, and the card is covered in blood next to him, so yeah, this might actually be an Avengers reference, which would be very, very interesting. But here's the thing, though. It was revealed in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the TV show spin-off of the MCU, that Phil Coulson didn't actually die. Okay, alright, so technically he was dead. I mean, the star is like, oh, I was dead for 10 minutes, but then they did some surgery and they brought me back to life. Huzzah! Only for it to be revealed later on that, oh no, I was in fact dead for like 3 full days, and they did some weird thing with this alien blood that brought me back to life. Now, I'm not saying we're gonna get alien blood here, but I do think there are some ways that Bakugo might still survive this in some form or another. Like I said before, Eri and Overhaul could certainly put him back together, save his life. Best Jeanist, could possibly perform surgery on him to fix up his heart, but even if he did, they're in the middle of a battlefield right now, and Bakugo is in a very badly damaged state, so that would still maybe not be enough to actually save his life. I'm seeing a lot of people online who are saying, oh, Bakugo has nitroglycerin, he'll be able to use that to fix his heart, which I'm fairly certain that's not how nitroglycerin works. From what I've read online, it relaxes the blood vessels so that the heart doesn't need to do as much work, and you could certainly argue that maybe, he's gonna use all the nitroglycerin in his body to basically almost stop his heart, so that way he doesn't lose all of his blood. For someone who's had his heart, literally explode out of his chest, there's not too much blood here quite yet. So maybe that's going to be the argument like, oh, the nitroglycerin in my body slowed my heart down enough where, I didn't bleed out and they were able to save me. It'd be a really, really weird explanation, and it would feel like it really cheapened this moment, but that is an explanation that could technically work. Alright, and that was the sane theories, so now let's move on to the insane theories. Huzzah! This is always my favorite part. First off, Bakugo seems to be meeting the soul of All Might, the quirk factor of All Might, inside the quirk realm, which is Interesting because he doesn't actually have any sort of connection to All Might's quirk, so why exactly is he seeing this? I'm seeing a lot of people online who are speculating, oh, maybe the second movie was canon, maybe that whole thing was canon, and actually Bakugo was able to inherit the power of One for All for a brief period, and now he's going to get it back, he's going to have all the power of All Might for the next couple minutes, and he's going to use that to fight against Shigaraki to hold him off long enough for Deku to arrive. I mean, maybe, but that'd be weird. That'd be really, really weird and convoluted, even for this series. So I'm gonna go with an even more insane conspiracy theory and say that Bakugo is going to time travel. Yes, I'm aware of how ridiculous that sounds, but there was something in this chapter that really caught my eye when Shigaraki was thinking about how he was, almost afraid, panicking of Bakugo. The first thing that came to his mind was a blurry image of the second user, the person that freed, All for One's brother from captivity. And this is something I've been speculating about for a long time, but could it be that the second user was in fact Bakugo? At some point in this fight, Bakugo is going to do something that results in him getting sent back in time, losing his memory, and essentially forming the resistance against All for One until he eventually, inherits the power of One for All, passes it on to someone else, dies, and then just, eventually becomes the spirit inside of One for All that, Deku's been talking to for the last several weeks. I mean, that would be a really cool way to kill Bakugo, but still keep him around. And what's more, it would mean that, Deku, the final quirk that Deku is about to unlock, is nitroglycerin sweat. It's Bakugo's quirk, and that would mean that, he's able to basically fight side by side with Bakugo, just in a, slightly different way. Oh, that'd be amazing. That'd be so freaking amazing. I think it would also explain something else, though, because when Deku was first, on his way, trying to get back to the fight, All for One, Shigaraki, whatever, he thought about using the second user's quirk in order to get there faster, and the second user said, oh, no, that is something you shouldn't use, except as a, last resort. If it was, in fact, nitroglycerin sweating, and he was able to, use the explosions, he could probably move a lot faster, just like Bakugo does, so that would technically fit. I mean, I feel like Deku probably should have some questions about, hey, why do you have the same quirk as Bakugo? Also, why do you look so much like Bakugo? I don't know, maybe Deku is actually already aware of what's going to happen. He already knows that the second user is, in fact, Bakugo, but that would be weird. That would be just so overwhelmingly weird. Though I guess it could explain possibly why it was that Deku ran away from UA, because he realized, okay, you just told me the whole truth about what's going to happen in the future, past, whatever, so therefore I know that Bakugo is going to die in this fight, or get sent back in time, and I'm trying to prevent that? I mean, that would just be an overwhelmingly weird storyline to plop down in the middle of this, but let's just say, for argument's sake, that Bakugo will get sent back in time, but he will lose his memories, and therefore the second user isn't aware that he's in fact Bakugo, and won't realize it until Deku goes to the fight and his memories come back, and he realizes, Deku, I was your best friend. I remember everything. That would be interesting. That would certainly be interesting. But anyway, besides Bakugo, we also have Suneater, who launched a freaking plasma cannon at Shigaraki, and it seems to have done nothing. Abso-freaking-lutely nothing to him. I mean, his argument does make sense. Do you think that attack really would have, killed All Might in his prime? And no, it wouldn't have. But a lot of people are mad because, that attack did nothing, whereas Bakugo was actually able to hurt Shigaraki. And I think there is, an actual explanation for this. Mainly that Shigaraki was able to see the plasma cannon coming and created, a whole lot of hands to basically shield him from the blow. But Bakugo was able to get really close and hit him, directly face to face. Hit his skin, and that's why, he was able to damage him while the plasma cannon did nothing. Or maybe it did something because, yeah, this is a weird element here, but the cannon, just shoots out into the open sky, and then at the end of the chapter, they're like, wow, it's raining out of nowhere. I wonder where that came from. Well, actually, they said it's due to a sudden and drastic rise in temperature, so could it be that the plasma cannon actually changed the weather? That is, something that is technically possible in this series. Back in the very first chapter, All Might made it rain by punching the slime villain really freaking hard. So therefore it would make sense for this giant plasma cannon to also be able to change the weather. I don't really know how that would affect anything. Were they hoping to change the weather? Did they want it to start raining? Was their actual big plan to somehow get like a lightning lure and get Shigaraki struck by lightning? That would make, I don't know, some sense. At the very least, it would mean that Suneater wasn't utterly and completely pointless. Seriously, last chapter and the start of this chapter were all about him, finally being able to live up to expectations, live up to all the praise he's been getting his whole life. Like this was finally going to be his moment to stand up and shine, and he just failed utterly and spectacularly. Seriously, it was pathetic. It was overwhelmingly pathetic. I mean, the blow was impressive. It flew off for miles and miles, but it did nothing to Shigaraki. And that is sad. That is really, really sad. Seriously, Horikoshi, you couldn't have had Shigaraki, I don't know, lose an arm because of it or something? Just show that there was some damage as a result of this attack. Seriously, this is getting depressing. And I say that fully aware that Bakugo may have actually died this chapter. And of course we also got this shot of his mother saying, "Oh, that kid of ours is no fan of rain." Oh my god, that was grim, seriously. If it makes you feel any better, I don't think he's alive to feel the rain. Oh, that may have been the darkest thing I've ever said in my entire life. That is really saying something, Jesus Christ. Anyway, this chapter was very, very grim. Looks like Bakugo died. He'll get fixed up, maybe by Eri or Overhaul or Best Jeanist, or he'll get sent back in time, or he'll somehow be able to inherit the powers of One for All because of a connection to the movie, which would make absolutely no sense. Though I guess I'm also proposing a time loop as the more logical solution, so I don't know, maybe Bakugo just will actually be dead here, and that's it, end of story. Or like I said, maybe the nitroglycerin in his body will slow his heart down enough where he doesn't bleed out, and he survives long enough to get to a doctor or to get stitched up or something to happen to him. Maybe, I don't know, please, God above, let me know what you think of all this down below. Is Bakugo actually dead? Did Shigaraki hit him, or did his heart just explode from overusing his quirk here? Just what's gonna happen next? Seriously, Horikoshi is evil! Not just for ending the chapter this way, but for ending the chapter this way when Shonen Jump is on break next week. Oh, that's depressing. That is so overwhelmingly depressing. But let me know what you think about all this down below. Be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss my next video. And until then, peace!